My name is Emily and welcome to Sweet Cake Patterns. In today's video, I'm going to share something that I had mentioned in my video 2 weeks ago that I made called 20 Ideas to Use Up Yarn Scraps. So I'll put a link in the cards in the description box to that video in case you're interested. But in this video, I wanted to share one of the ideas that I had mentioned in that video, and that is a yarn jar. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is what my final one looked like, and then this is what my mom's looked like and my little sister's look like. This is a super fun project. I honestly did not plan or did not think it would be this fun of a project. I normally just tend to do crochet as my crafty hobby, but I for sure enjoyed doing this, and I honestly, this project made me think, oh, I wonder what else I could do with like covering yarn, my jars in yarn, or just other fun crafty projects. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. These are the yarns I'm planning to use for the scrap yarn jar, and this is just a Premier Basics worsted yarn in the color mauve something, I don't remember. This is Red Heart Super Saver, and then this is just Red Heart Super Saver in the color soft white, I believe. But anyway, just some scrap yarns I'm going to be using to cover my jar. So this is the jar that I'll be covering. It's actually a coconut oil jar, and the label is starting to fall off. So I figured might as well do it on something that's kind of a disaster. And this is my jar that I've been keeping all my yarn scraps in. So I've actually had this jar for like probably 2 or 3 years, and I've been keeping my yarn scraps in here. So I'm super excited to make it look nicer than just a organic coconut oil jar. So the thing that I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to start with this color, this mauve color, and I am going to start at the top and work down. Now this is just kind of a fun experiment, so I'm going to be a little more chatty, and I'm also going to just share kind of some of the process because I've never covered a jar in yarn before. I've just seen some like fun Pinterest pin ideas, so I'm excited to try, and we will see how it works. So I have the hot glue gun warming, and then I'm also, then you can see this is the yarn that I'm going to start by using, and this is the jar. I'm going to go ahead and take out these yarn scraps real quick so that it doesn't fall out while I'm working on it, and I'll be right back. Alright, now that the jar is empty, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to start in the back, and I just am going to do about the back of the label where there's no label. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lay this down sideways so you guys can see it. And I'm just going to start right about here, and then I'm going to grab my hot glue gun, which should be nice and warm at this point. You can see this is my hot glue gun. It's a little bit old looking, but it works. And I'm just going to put a little dab of glue like that. And I'm probably going to unplug and plug in my hot glue gun several times during this project because I really don't want it to start to get really hot because it will get really hard to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and try putting my little tail of yarn into where I just put some hot glue. And now I'm thinking of doing it hot glue every like maybe once like every quarter, so 1/4 of the jar. So maybe like here again, we'll see. I'm going to grab a little more hot glue, and I'm just going to put a little dab right there. You want to squeeze super lightly. All we want is just a little dot. Otherwise, we're going to see the glue when we're done. So just going to go ahead and keep going. And there you go. You can see that looks like that is going to work well. I think this glue kind of dried before I could use it, so I'm going to just put a little glob of glue there again. There you go. And you're probably, as you're doing this, you'll probably kind of get the hang of it, just like I'm trying to get the hang of it. So you can see that is how it's looking. So we're just starting, and then I'm going to keep going just to another spot. And when you're using your hot glue, I would recommend just like barely squeezing it. So let's see, if I go to right here, I am almost just what falls out is what you're going to use. There you go. So like that tiny little amount, you can barely see. I'm going to put my hot glue gun down, and I'm going to just press it down there. So you can see it's looking really good. We started here, we're just keeping going around. Okay, so I am continuing to learn as I do it. So with the little ridges, it's really hard to get on there, so I just decided to have little, like a little bit of clear, and I'm not going to worry about that. But now I'm starting like the rest of this, so I want to come back on and show you my progress and mention kind of what I've learned. So I've learned that you don't need to do, at least so far it seems that you don't need to do very many. So like when I was doing the 4, that's a little too much because you tend to see the little globs a tiny bit of like the globs of hot glue. So what I would recommend doing is I'm going to put right here a little bit more, and I would continue to go over. So you can see that I have a little bit of hot glue there. I'm going to go over just a little bit, otherwise you're going to get a really big, gigantic mound of hot glue. So if I put that like that, then I'm going to bring this over, and I can see that the faster you can go, the better, because you're going to get more, like you're not going to have to use your hot glue gun quite as much. So I can make it back in enough time that the hot glue is still wet and still going to stick. That would be ideal. Alright, so I've actually managed to get quite a bit done, and I've learned a lot of tips. So let me share with you my tips. So the first thing I wanted to say is that when I was trying to do it up here, I was trying to do it in 4 different spots. So I was going 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I found is that I would keep having to do little dots of glue, and it was making kind of clumps and lumps. And especially with this little kind of lips, because it has normally a screw-on lip, it was really not working. So what I did when I started doing this is I went down to only 2 spots. So in the very back and in the front is where I do my 2 little hot glue spots. And then what I like to do is get the hot glue really nice and hot. So I would probably say plug it in for like 3 minutes or so. And then give yourself, like, I would say a tiny little bit, like less than my finger's width, just about my finger's width of hot glue. So going down, so like that much. And then do that on this side, and then kind of try to wrap as quick as you can. So let's say I put a little bit of glue on here. So let's say I do like the amount of white I have on my nail. And then I would just really quick wrap, and when you're wrapping, make sure to do it nice and tight so it kind of gives us its tension. So even if you do it in just 2 spots, it still is nice and tight and it's not going anywhere. So let's say I'm going to do it. I'm going to go now quick around, and I like to flip it upside down sometimes, and sometimes I like to have it straight up. So you can just decide. So if I'm doing the hot glue, then I'm going to work around super quick. And you don't want to do crazy amounts, but you do want to do a good amount of. So whenever you're doing it, whenever you get your hot glue strips, you want to do probably like 3 or 4 or 5 wraps with each hot glue little strip, and make sure that your hot glue again is nice and warm. Otherwise, you're not even going to make it around once, and your hot glue will be dried already. Now, if you ever get kind of like a little hot glue clump, what you're going to want to do, you're just going to want like grab little scissors that kind of have like a small little base to them, and you're just going to want to cut off that glue because you don't want there to be a lumps in your project. So you don't want any lumps, so just if you get like a hot glue glob, you're just going to go like this and cut it off. So you're going to continue going like this. Now at this point, I'm going to add a little white strip. So I'm just going to, you can see I'm in the back of my work and I did a little hot glue. So now I can just go ahead and cut this yarn, and then I'm going to start with this yarn. Alright, I wanted to come back on and give you a little bit of an update. So it's been a couple of days because I didn't really get much done on this because I've been busy. But what I wanted to show you is how I did all the white, and now I'm going to go back to this mauve color. But one thing I noticed while working on the white yarn is that you will either A, not want to use a light color, B, take off your label, or C, put paper over your label, because otherwise when you use a light color and you don't put anything over it, you can see the purple through there. So I'm trying my best to kind of push it up, but you can kind of still see where there's that kind of dark color and then it goes back to this green color. So this was like the dark color that's like organic. So that is my little recommendation. So I would, for the rest of this, I couldn't really take off the label because it's kind of a couple-year-old jar and I think we had washed it. And so it's not very easy to take off the label. It just kind of doesn't come off very well. So what I did is I took a piece of white paper and then I just taped it right here and then took another piece of white paper and taped it right here. So it's just taped on both sides. And now I'm going to continue, this time using the mauve color. So I don't think it'll be quite as see-through anyway, but I want to do this just in case so that it will cover well. And yeah, I'm going to continue on and I will meet you back in a little while and I'll show you a little bit of an update. Alright, so you can see that I finished off the bottom, and one of the tips I found for the bottom is as I was working around, what I did is I did more spots of little glue. So I would, because I wanted to, like, when you have it sitting down, I wanted you to not see any of the clear plastic. What I did was I did a tiny bit of glue and then I just held my finger there. So the glue was a little bit more cool, so I just held my finger there so that as the glue would dry, the yarn would stay there. And I did it in more spots, otherwise the yarn would want to go like this and peel or kind of fall down. So if you just do enough glue and then just kind of hold your finger there to keep it up, that is how I did it. And then you can see I haven't quite finished. Like I can just cut this off a little bit more right there. But otherwise you can see that this was a super fun project. It turned out really, really cute and I'm so glad I did it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I am planning on doing, so you can see right here was where the like the little I'll call it threading is for like a lid on top. I'm going to do one more layer of the mauve yarn so that it's a little bit thicker and you don't see those clear little lines. And plus I had more hot glue little mistakes because when I was just starting it just wasn't as good. So yeah, my advice continues to stay good for this. This actually didn't take me very long. Like the first part took me forever, but then this whole part did not take me very long at all. And that was just because I did it in 2 spots. I got the hot glue really nice and warm. So I would say probably like 5 minutes or 6, maybe even 6 minutes on. Have it in one spot and then another spot and then just wrap it around super quick. So I would kind of hold it like this and go around and around and around and like just like continue to spin the thing and then push down to make sure. So you can see this was my hot glue line and then where I changed colors and it looks really, really good. You can barely tell that was the hot glue line. And then the last thing I want to mention is I am also going to try doing 1 strip of this white on top of this white because I really don't like how you can kind of see that purple through. And there you go, you can kind of see right there, that purple. So I'm gonna do one more strip of white, and I'm just gonna wrap it around, start where the white began, and just wrap it around. And I think I'll actually add a cool texture because it's just gonna be a little bit more raised. And so I'm super excited to do that and this. And then that is my little update. Ever since I added that white piece of paper, you can see that you can't see anything through that yarn, and it is a darker color, so I credit that too, but I think that would have helped this a whole lot. Then the other thing I wanted to mention is my mom tried making tried doing the same thing but using faux fur, and I absolutely love how this turned out too. It's like super fuzzy, and she used hot glue to secure it, and you can see she used, this is We Crochet Fable Fur in the color, I'm probably saying this wrong, Volp. This was in Esbar, Paloma, and then Volp again. So those were the colors, and her tip was to not, when you're wrapping around, make sure to have the yarn strand straight. And so don't let it get twisted, because if the yarn strand gets twisted, you'll see like the little ribbon part, so like the back side. If I grab a piece of faux fur here, I can show you. So you can see that there's like that little strand of like ribbon, and then there's the fuzz. So you want to keep the fuzz on the front side at all times, and you don't want the ribbon showing through or like twisted, because that will just not look as good, especially with the light color. You'll notice that ribbon more than with this dark black color. So yeah, I absolutely loved how this one turned out. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that my little sister did one, and when she did this, we thought that it'd be a little bit safer if she used, instead of hot glue, she used the like Elmer's glue, wet glue that just dries clear. And you can see that it really turned out well. You can feel like a little bit more of like, it doesn't feel as like soft, I'll say. You can kind of feel where there's like, it's clear, but you can feel like some glue in different spots. And then the other thing I want to mention is that you could always add like a bow or a rose to your jar by like just adding some hot glue on the jar and then attaching it. And I think that would be a really fun little touch. And this is a little bit of a big bow, or sorry, rose, but you could do whatever size rose you want. And I have a couple of tutorials that I'll link in the cards to how to make a rose, but you can always find lots of tutorials on YouTube too. All right, so my family keeps giving me incredible ideas. So the latest idea that they gave me was to make little roses and then put a little button in the center and then hot glue them onto this. So you can see that's what I did here. And I'm planning to do 5 of them. So 1, like 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I wanted to come on and kind of show you what I'm doing. So first off, the rose tutorial is a free tutorial on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link up here in the cards. And then the button, all I did is I just left a little bit of a bigger hole and like in the center, and then I just attached these little buttons that I had. And I'll put a link in the description box down below to a button that's really similar to this, if not the same. And so then I sewed this rose together. So you make a long strip, then sew the rose together. And the tip that I found to work best to sew so you have space for this button is having, so you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 petals right here. And if you have the first petal go to the 4th petal, instead of like normally I would turn the first petal right into the 2nd petal. If you have the first petal go over to the 4th petal, then you kind of have this bigger area for a button, and then just go out from there. Alright, so I struggled with eyeing kind of how far to separate each of the 5 ones. So what I did is I took a tape measure and went around the whole jar, and I found that my jar is exactly 16 inches like around. So then what I did is I divided that by 5 because I wanted 5 roses. You can see I have 5 roses. So I wanted 5, and then my answer was 3.2. So then what I did is I took my tape measure and I measured from the center of this one over 3.2, and then I just put a little pin mark with 3.2. So you can see there's one, there's another one, there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. Roughly, it's 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to line up the center of the back of the rose right there. So it's going to be nice and even and look beautiful. So now what we're going to do is you're just going to put some hot glue onto the back of this. And I like to do a pretty generous amount, not obviously crazy, but a decent amount, because you want it to be nice and secure when you're done with this. And so that's plenty, probably a little too much, but plenty. There you go. And, oops, there you go. Now, the one thing I'm going to do, I just noticed, is that my little end, I don't want ever to be seeable, so I just cut off that little fuzz. So you can see I had tied off there and just cut it, so you don't want to see that, so I'm just going to push that in a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find one of our dots that we put on. So you can see here is the first rose, and then here is the dot, and I'm going to just try my best to line up. I'm going to put a tiny more hot glue right there. There we go. Try my best to line up the middle with the middle of this here dot. So you can see roughly that looks about like the middle to me. If I kind of twist it, I think I like that look better. There we go. And then you just kind of want to push it down as much as you can. So for me, I did a certain amount of white rose, and so I also want to make sure it's in the middle there and horizontally the middle of my pen dot. So I'm just going to push that down. Make sure it's secures nice and good. And there you go. You can see there's one and now two. So now we have all of those glued on, and it is so cute. I love how much that adds. Now the last thing that my family recommended I do, and I'm super excited to do, is I'm going to add some faux fur around this rim, because I don't like how it's like you can see through it, because there's like those ridges, and so I was trying my best to cover it, but it just really wasn't working with this first round. So now I'm going to come back with a second round, and this time do faux fur. Alright, so this is the faux fur yarn that I'm going to be using, and this is We Crochet Fable Fur in the color Vulp, I believe. That's what it's called. I'm not sure. I probably am butchering how it's supposed to be called, but it's VOLPE. So, what I'm going to do is you can see that there is kind of this white line across the top of the jar, because that's just where we cut the seal. So what we're going to do is we are going to attach it onto the top so that it covers this white, because that just looks kind of cheesy. So we're going to grab some hot glue again, and I like to start kind of in the same spot as I did as I ended. So you can't tell it here because I attached the flower, but you can tell it because it's down here. So I'm just going to go about directly up, about there. And what we're going to do is we are going to attach it and start going around. So I'm going to just put a little bit of hot glue, if it's still warm enough, right there. And of course it likes to make those little stringies. Super annoying. Okay. Now I'm just going to grab the end to start, and you want to make sure you have the ribbon facing down and the fuzz facing up. So even if it gets a little bit twisted, you want to make sure your ribbon is always facing down. So I'm just going to push it into that. And I think it started to actually dry too quick. So I'm going to have to plug in my hot glue gun again and start doing this. But you can kind of get the idea. So put a little hot glue there. We'll see, maybe if I go a little quicker, it'll work. So if I just push it down into there. There you go. Now you're just going to keep going. And when you're doing it like this around the top, it's going to want to just like fall in like that. So you're going to want to have to do more like little spots of hot glue. Otherwise, you're going to end up with like something like this. And you definitely do not want that. So just kind of keep doing little chunks of hot glue. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my hot glue gun again so I can kind of keep working on this. And without it drying so instantly. So I'm going to go ahead and finish working around the top, and I'll meet you back in a little bit. As you can see, I worked around the top, and you can see that I have a little bit left. So I wanted to kind of teach you the little technique that I learned that works best for going around the top. So what I like to do is I like to get my hot glue gun, and right now it's plugged in, so that's why I can't bring it in all the way. It's a little too far from the outlet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little hot glue right here on the very top and just squeeze. There you go. So you just want a little dot. You can see there's that little dot of hot glue. And all you're going to do is you're going to make sure it's nice and straight so the ribbon is facing down. So you're just going to press the ribbon down onto there. And then what I like to do so that it stays nice and secure is I like to take my 2 fingers and pinch it where that hot glue is. Make sure your hot glue obviously is not too hot that it's going to burn your hand. But if you pinch it there, it just helps it stay nice and secure. So that is kind of the technique I used around. So I would do a little hot glue, put my yarn down, and then pinch it at the base of the yarn and at the hot glue. So you can see that is how it's looking. Super, super cute. Now at this point, because I finished the first go around, I'm going to start working on the second layer. So we're just going to bring it down and start working like that. So, but remember to always have the ribbon facing towards it. So you want to hot glue the ribbon. You don't want to hot glue the fuzz. So yeah, so now you can see that I think I'm going to call that good, and I'm going to be done. So I did a total of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps if you include the wrap that I did around the top. And I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. I think it is so, so cute. So I hope you got out of this video that you can really do this any way that you want. But my top recommendation would be if you're doing this and you're more of an adult, I would highly recommend using hot glue, because I do feel like it turned out a little bit better with hot glue. And just be careful to try not get globs. So like when my mom did it, she was a little bit less careful, and you can feel like, you can't see it because it's faux fur, but when you touch it, you can feel that there's like a couple of like little hot glue spots. So you'll want to just, as you're going along, like I had mentioned, cut off some of the hot glue that dries. But yeah, I think my hot glue would probably be my first choice. But if you're doing this with kids, it turned out absolutely amazing when we did the Elmer's glue. So this is what my little sister's turned out like, and the Elmer's glue that she used dried completely clear. However, you can hear it's a little more, it's like a little crunchy, I would say, but like when you squeeze it a little bit or something, and it's not quite as soft. But I think if you were to use a little bit less Elmer's glue, it'd be even a little bit better. But what she did is she just kind of smeared the Elmer's glue and then took the yarn and wrapped it around. And it worked really, really well. It takes a little bit longer to dry. So like I would say probably 30 minutes to an hour to make sure it's nice and dry, and then you can start using it. But you can see that she is going to use it for all her coloring, crayons and pencils, and I know that she will absolutely love this. She's going to have it on her desk downstairs while she's studying or whatever. She can use these coloring crayons. So it would work perfectly if you're wanting to do this for more, if you're more of an adult, do hot glue and just follow the tips I mentioned in the video. And if you're more doing it with kids, I would do this and do the Elmer's glue. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you enjoy crochet tutorials, crochet vlogs, and occasionally fun crafty projects like these. Also, don't forget to comment down below and tell me what color you made this in, and if you did this with your kids or grandkids, or if you just did this as a project for yourself. I absolutely love hearing from you guys, and so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!